Happy Saturday, everybody. All you dog lovers out there. Basically, just want to go over some of these dog training collars. I did a couple shorts, different couple videos, and I just said, you know what, let me go live. I've never been live on YouTube before, so this is my first time. So kind of learning how it works over here. But anyways, what I wanted to do is kind of just discuss some of these training collars. I train people all over the world every day, and so many people, if they don't have the awareness, they're not understanding how to wear these collars. So let me jump right in here, guys, and show you what I'm talking about. So we have buckle collars, right? Buckle collar, different size, what I consider a step up. So what I'll use, a buckle collar is fantastic for a puppy, even a maturing puppy, even some adults. I completely can train a dog on a buckle collar. For the right personality, this is plenty for dog training. Okay, doesn't matter the size of the dog. It's you gotta match the collar to the personality, and that's the big thing. A lot of people want to match perception collars to perception of size of the dog. Big dog needs a prong collar. Small dog needs a buckle collar. That kind of thing, and that could be, that's just not true. Like I said, within every breed, every size of dogs, there's different personalities, and different personalities need to be handled differently. You know what I mean? So that's what all these dog training tools are for. And this is for a balanced approach. This is not all positive. All positive would be more of repetition of treat, repeating commands, just a lot. You're ingraining over and over repetitions to your dog. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with it. It works for me. It's just not ideal because the average dog owner doesn't have that kind of time. So for me, it works better. It's my experience that, the dog owners can be more successful with a balanced scale approach. And with a balanced scale approach, we're using dog training collars. And that's what I'm getting into. So I was talking about the dog or the buckle. Right, here we go. These regular old buckle collars, the ones you would buy at any Walmart, any kind of a store that's got a pet department. Now, a step up, let's say your dog was blowing this off and you and I were working together. What I would recommend to step up from here. And like I said, all these tools, they're in levels. Okay. So if a buckle collar is not working, and let me state something too. It's the kind of my approach with these training collars is that I always use the least collar that works, if that makes sense. If a buckle collar is completely training this dog in all scenarios, even in a distraction scenario outdoors, I'll leave it on. There's no need to get into a different collar if the collar is working. But what people need to understand is if the collar is not working, you need to know when to upgrade your collar. Okay, so that's basically, if I'm using a buckle collar and I'm working a dog through a situation and we're using some reinforcements, the dog's not doing something the way we want him to, and basically it's just a no. What I do, I imply a no with a collar. So I basically say no, sit, no, down, no, come. So if they don't do it, instead of me saying, sit, just keep repeating the command, which is just teaching the dog that you're going to say it over and over and over. So they never do it the first time. I'll say sit. If I know they know what sit means, if they don't do it, then I go into my reinforcement. No, sit. So my point is they start blowing off a buckle collar in that situation. Then I say, okay, next step up is what we call a martingale collar. You guys seen these? Fantastic collars. I love these on puppies. It's a great way to leash break, puppies, get them used to a little bit of tug on their neck. Very safe, fantastic collars. You can get them with the quick release as well. Again, fantastic tool. If this tool works, I'll never step into something higher. And this is, you may find that this works in certain scenarios, and you have to go back to this. One-on-one at the house is perfect. You get outside around other distractions of the dogs. Oh, we need to go to the martingale collar. That's what I call these, martingale. Buckle collar, martingale collar. And that's basically the way they work. Your leash goes right here, and you're basically saying, hey, pay attention. You're just starting to get a little bit of a zip on a chain, and that basically redirects. They're like, oh, it's important to kind of have that little small chain. I actually have an example of one here where the chain, the quality is not as good. I don't know if you can see how big that is, but it doesn't slide back through there the way you to. And that, again, it's just you lose effectiveness. But it's a martingale collar. What I want to point out about these martingale collars, guys, is that, so let's say you put this on a big dog, and this is the way it's worn, right? But day after day, maybe they start pulling. They pull a little much on this collar. Before you know it, it's stretched out on their neck, and now they're wearing it like this. And you can be putting your leash on there, and it doesn't matter what you're doing. If these two, see these two little loops here? If they're touching like that, you see what I'm talking about? When they're touching, look what happens. Guess what I got again? Buckle collar. No different. And you see this a lot. So if this is happening to you, you need to tighten your collar back up and get it to the proper fit. So you're using the actual martingale collar instead of thinking you are, and it's too big and you just got a buckle collar on your dog. Right? So that's a martingale collar. Now, if we're into a martingale collar, going fine through training, all of a sudden the dog starts blowing this off. We get into a distraction level where the instincts are overriding this collar. Does that make sense? What we want to do is say, okay, we need something to get the dog's attention. What I do from a step up from a martingale collar is what we call remember these? Old school chains. I call it a training collar. People refer to them as choke chains, slip chains, that kind of thing. And again, it goes back to these last couple of collars that I'm going to go over. There's a lot of lack of awareness that people aren't understanding of how to wear these, how to put them on your dog. And I'm going to show you this one right here. It's very easy. This is a short I did not too long ago as well, if you want to check that one out. But you can slide either end into this. It doesn't matter which way it goes. Okay, I don't know if you can see what I'm doing here, but the important part, and most people wouldn't even realize there's two ways to put this on a dog, but when you're sliding this over a dog's muzzle, see how that makes a P, lowercase p. That's the way you want it to go on the dog. If you place it over their head like that, and this is their muzzle, when you have your leash right here and you go to use any kind of reinforcement, look what happens to that. Do you see how that's breaking away? That's so important. Most people don't understand that. It's very easy. Look what I'm going to do here. Whoops. Flip it around. Now we got, you see what letter I have now? I don't have a P. Now I have a lowercase q. And look what happens when you do that same exact thing. See the difference? That's where the term choke chain comes into play. So it's very important, guys, if you're using these types of collars, that needs to make a P when you place it on the dog, not a Q. A very simple adjustment. You see the difference there, and a lot of people don't even know the difference. One can choke your dog, and one is a phenomenal training tool. Again, that's why I'm sharing this information. So this is a great tool for a step up from, let's say, like a martingale. Starting to get into more, a training type. If again, it's usually the higher level of the dog energy level. It kind of decides, and that's, again, it goes back to the personality. A high level, high energy type dog, it's going to probably need more of a type collar like that over a buckle collar, especially when they start seeing other dogs, other, prey drive kicks, and they see animals, they see birds, all that kind of stuff. That's reality. But your collar, your training tool needs to be able to override their instinct depending on the situation they're in. And again, hope that makes sense. So let's say they're in this collar right here, and your correction technique is good. You got it down and you're doing everything but they're blowing this off for some reason. And it's not, if you got a good technique, I can pretty much train all dogs on this stuff right here. But it goes back to the technique. So what I'm going to show you next is what we call a pinch collar, right? Everyone knows what these are. They're ugly. Look at this little prong collar. This is a micro prong, right? The big ugly ones. The reason these are so effective, guys, and this is the size I like the most right here. Actually, I'm out of links on this one. But it's a small size too, and 2.25 millimeter, I believe. But these are fantastic. The reason these are so popular, I'm going to use this one. It's a little bit bigger for the visual. The reason these are so popular is because this collar right here, if worn even improperly, I'm going to show you the right way to wear it, but even when worn improperly, it allows an average dog owner, and I'm not disrespecting anybody, but an average dog owner to lack technique, correction technique, because you don't practice it a lot, and still be effective. That's why these are popular, guys, right? It allows you to not have to, what's the word I'm looking for, to nail that correction technique. And it is a technique. The more you do it, the better you can get. You know what I mean? But once you get a correction technique down and the way to do it, you can pretty much, like I said, I can do it with buckle collars and train most dogs. But this will allow someone who hasn't practiced for 25 plus years to do the same thing. And that's my point. That's why these are popular. So now let me show you a big deal about these. Okay. So these are your prong or pinch collars. You see how this slides back and forth right here? See that? That is supposed to be worn right here on the dog. And for most people, there's a huge lack of awareness out there, guys, and they have these on too big. This is a snug collar. It's worn up on the ears, right? And when it's snug, let me get my hand in there. When it's snug, your leash goes right here. This is what stays on the trachea. Does that make sense? This is what goes right here. You don't want this flipped around and on the dog's throat. But if you have it too big and your leash is up here, right? That's what I see all the time with people who aren't understanding. Unfortunately, you can go buy one of these without instructions. They don't come with instructions. And that's kind of, so what you want to do, guys, if you have this on, like I said, it's on your dog too big. Look, let's say you're wearing it like this and your leash is up here and you got these prongs on their throat. You don't want that. Flip it back around. Take probably 2 links out. I don't know how big it is, but probably 2 links, and it's a snug fit. It's worn up on the ears. And what that does is it keeps these prongs, these medieval, ugly-looking things, it keeps it on the scruff of the neck, the way mom picks her puppies up, the way litter mates play. That's what this is supposed to do. And it keeps this safe part, look, down here on the trachea. That's the way, even if you apply it up, correction, everything else, if this is properly fit, this part stays on the neck. And I hope that makes sense, that it's a huge problem I'm still seeing today. And, you know, these collars have been around forever, and a lot of people say they hate them. You know, I say they're fantastic in the right hands, and just like any other tool, they can be abused. And so we need to have the awareness out there of how to properly put these on our dog. If any of you guys want to message me, you know, about this, you know, drop it in the chat. I'll show you how to, we'll have a discussion on how to properly fit it for your dog. You know, and what I like is that's I think a 3.0 medium size. I actually like the 2.25 size. It's a little bit thinner. I'll put this on a Great Dane or St. Bernard and just add links all the way around their big neck because I know this is effective. The bigger you get in these prong and pinch collars type stuff, it's all marketing. You know, if you go into the PetSmart, someone who doesn't really understand what they're doing, they're working, you know, that kind of thing, and you go in there with this big 100-pound dog, guess what they're going to set you up with? Extra large pinch collar. It's probably going to cost you about $70, and they don't even know why they did that, except that you have a big dog. You know what I mean? And that's where this awareness needs to come in. I'll put a small, because this is effective, I'll just add them links all the way around if I need it. 100-pound dog can still be trained on this. And again, that goes back to the perception. 100-pound dog needs a prong collar. A little Chihuahua, 10-pound dog, doesn't need a pinch collar. They can be trained on a buckle, right? So when people see, you know, these collars on little dogs, like, oh, that's so sad. Yeah, but these are the same dogs that are nailing people and bites. You know what I mean? It's because we're coddling, we're picking up instead of training. Within every breed, every size dog has a personality that needs a pinch collar in training. I promise you that. It's more of a dominant, high energy type. This is, you know, it doesn't matter the size of the dog. 10 pounds, 100 pounds. They all have the same mindset. They all have, they're running on pack mentality, you know, so that's where the awareness for the owner comes in and deciding which collar works best for the dog. Again, I always start low. If a buckle collar works, I'll never take the dog out of a buckle collar through training. If they're blowing the buckle collar off, I'll step into a martingale. Again, with proper techniques. If they get to the point, because of the environment, it might be a distraction-proofing environment or something where they're blowing off this martingale and it's properly fit, then I'll step them into this. Maybe. Sometimes I bypass this and go straight to a pinch collar. Depends on the dog and depends on the scenario. Depends on the owners. Honestly, because this is training the owners, right? So I might be working with someone who's got a fantastic technique. They can get away with this. I might be working with someone, maybe elderly, that they can't do the same technique. I need to do something to be able to help them, you know, give the structure to their dogs. And that's why a good trainer should have a toolbox of all this stuff. And if you're ever somewhere where you're seeing the trainer use the same tool on every dog, turn around and go the other direction because every dog's a different personality. And that should be your first red flag that, I got to get out of here, right? And that's very popular. And I'm going to tell you the 2 ways that I see happening a lot, guys. It's remote collar trainers out there. There's a lot of people, dog trainers who are advertising off leash in 8 weeks, that kind of thing. And they put a remote collar on every dog that comes their way. And then they advertise off leash, and it's not even off leash. It's actually invisible. So what that is it takes shortcuts. If you go through all 6 phases of training the proper way, with any tool, you can off leash dog, but you got to do it the right way. What they're doing is they're trying to take shortcuts. They're advertising it, as off leash when it's just invisible. So pay attention to what you're looking at. If every dog has the same tool, how can that possibly be? Right? If you were to watch any of my, and again, I only use group classes for a proofing scenario. I don't just teach in a group class, but if you were to come up on one of my group classes that I'm teaching out in a park or a distracting environment, you're going to see a dog over here that has a buckle collar. This dog might have a martingale. This dog might have a slip chain. This might have a remote collar. This dog might have a pinch collar, then a buckle. You don't know because all dogs are different. Does that make sense? We're using the same approach. My approach does not change. It's a balanced scale approach. I use a ton of positive reinforcement, but I instill some negative for the reinforcements. Your approach can stay exactly the same, and you can go from collar to collar to collar, depending on your environment, if you know how to use them all. And that's where a good trainer should have these all in their toolbox. And that's kind of my point. So hope you got some value out of this. There's basically a right and wrong way to wear every one of these collars, except a buckle collar. The only thing you can really do wrong with a buckle collar is have it on too big where they can slip out of it. And a lot of people do that too. So just make sure your buckle collar is on tight enough. Other than that, I hope this was some good information, guys. I'll be jumping on here more often with some more educational videos in this dog world, right? So hope all you dog lovers saw this. Be sure to subscribe, and I will catch you next time. Have a phenomenal weekend.